Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, I have Noel Inniss with me. Noel is going to talk with us about how to deal with the anxiety and stress and depression and how to get our minds out of our heads. And we're going to have a very, very deep conversation about who we really are and how to get all of that noise out of our lives to be able to get down to the real essence and the real core of who we are as human beings. And holy cow, what an amazing conversation. So share this. Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share real life experiences of people who have been there and done that and finding better in their own lives and are helping others find better in their own lives as well. This is not about opinions. This is not about academics. It's not about theory. It's about real life experiences. Because, and that's what this whole podcast is about. Because, sometimes the best way to success is to copy it or at least learn from others. And so this is what this is all about. I have Noel Inniss with me today. And this is a conversation that I think is going to help a lot of people. It certainly is going to help me. And we're going to talk about, some pretty light topics today, like anxiety and stress and depression and fear. And we're going to talk about, you get to a certain point in your life where you go, who am I? What is going on? And why am I here? And so
Mm.
it's in some senses it's going to be a very light conversation. In other senses, it's going to be kind of heavy. But the fact of the matter is, this is the core. This is the core of who we are and what we can be. So, Noel, thank you for joining me.
It's an honor and a privilege.
But I was just gonna say it's an honor to have you on board. So listen, you have been practicing what you're about to talk about for 40 years.
Yes,
And it's all about, and folks, he also wrote a book. He's the author of this book called Inner Odyssey, Navigating the Path to True Fulfillment. Okay. And I'll tell you, uh, Noel, I listened to that, the whole thing about navigating the path to true fulfillment. And I just kind of
Mhm.
go, oh boy, here we go again, right? But you have a really remarkable message that I think can help a lot of people out there, especially with all the stresses of the world that we live with these days. So
Absolutely.
talk about talk about what your definition is of true fulfillment. Let's start there.
Well, true fulfillment. We can look at it in many different avenues. One is feeling safe in the space we occupy in the air, having a healthy body, not suffering with depression and anxiety and fear. From the time we come in to this earth plane as babies, we're in what we call our I am stage. I am that I am is the only truth that there is. Then I am becomes I am this body. From the time we start to identify as the body, then fear becomes the dominant emotion because we can hurt ourselves, we can die. And then as we
Okay, so
become
so 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 let's go from the first one. Okay.
okay,
When we're babies, we are I am. That's all there is,
that's the
right? I
only
mean, we're this,
concept. Yes,
yes, because we have nothing else except for what
right.
from which we've come. And
Yes,
somehow this literal piece of meat and bones has manifested itself into a living being. And
yes.
so we come into the world that way. You can call it a spirit, you can call it whatever you want. But then we then enter the body stage, right?
Correct.
And this is and say again what that body stage is.
And the bodies would be our vehicle while we're here. It's through the body and the five senses that we get to experience this dimension.
Yes.
Yeah, we learn and we're taught that we come into the body and leave it, but we can't identify with who we really are because it's not a thing.
And when
It's made
when you say we come into this body and we leave it, so
of.
we come into this body as we're born,
Mhm.
and the leave it part is when we die. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And but it's actually it the body appears so we can experience this dimension, and then death is of the body. It's the body has an expiration date.
Right.
But the truth that sets us free is that we're not that.
We're not just the body.
Yeah, who we are, we encapsulate this body for a time and then it disappears. But who we are is infinite, what we call spirit or soul.
Right.
So we don't die and we're not born. It's just because of the body that we get to experience this dimension for a little while.
Got
So
it.
who we so when we do the self-inquiry and we ask the question, who am I? We get back to that is not transient,
Okay.
something that
So,
doesn't come and go.
okay, say that again.
When we ask the question, who am I?
Right?
And we experience our true essence, it's something that's permanent, it's infinite, it's unchanging, it's a truth, it's
Got it.
real, which means it doesn't come and go. If you ask yourself the definition of real, that is a definition. It's something that never changes, right? So when you ask yourself, what under that definition, what's real? The body disappears one day.
Hmm.
Everything in existence will leave. There's only
Right.
one thing that never changes, which is who we are, which is the awareness
Okay.
that observes the mind and everything else in life.
Okay. So, okay. So some of the, what, with that knowledge,
Mhm.
right? Having that knowledge that you said that most people don't have, um, how can you use that knowledge
Well,
to make your life better?
what we're doing, we all agree, even the medical establishment, that stress is number one killer in the world.
Okay.
Stress is only how one is perceiving what they're experiencing at that moment. Another person experienced the same thing, perceive it differently, and it's not stressful. It killed one and not the
Absolutely.
other.
That's right.
So perception is what you think about something, and which means it's comes from your mind.
You know, that is so true. That is so true. I mean, and that is a message for the ages and for everybody out there, right? Something can happen to you and you look at it as a really, really stressful situation, terrible, end of the world kind of thing. Same thing can
Mhm.
happen to somebody else and it's no big deal.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And you
That
know, it's your perspective and your perception of what's happening.
yeah. So as we do the self-inquiry, and self-inquiry is just asking that question, who am I? Who am I? And as first what comes is who you're not, the basic three. If you're a spirit or soul that enters this body for a little while, then you're not your body. And the fact that we say my body, it's like saying my house, my car. It denotes separation and ownership. It means that it's something that you're not. And
Hmm.
then as you come in as a baby and you exist before you learn the first word, the concepts came after, then you're not a concept. When you understand you're not a concept, you're not your mind. And as you start to do the self inquiry and you ask, who am I? You know, the mind can only give you the only concepts that come closest I am, or experiencing, or existing. I am
Okay.
that I am is the only truth that there is. We learn that.
I am. that I am.
I am that I am. That's one that's in the Bible.
Hmm.
So as we attach all our experiences and stories to I am, my personal experience, I am Noel. I am insecure. I am not good enough. There were some people may not have want me around when I was a child. I got sent to America. I am this, I am that. I am not. Those are just stories that stores in the mind, forms this avatar that the ego uses to make sure that I don't see the light of day. The ego does not want me to know that I'm not a concept because he's a concept. And then he has to assume his rightful duty. The mind and the ego's rightful place is to be like the soldier in the watchtower of the castle. He watches out for the castle. The real purpose of the mind and the ego is to take care of the body and keep the body safe. But we have to understand and do the self-inquiry to allow that process to happen.
So you said that the mind the mind doesn't want it to see the light of day.
No, there's
What is
this
that?
fella in, yeah, the fella is, well, the mind wants to exist. It has its narrative.
What was the part that you said doesn't want you to see the light of day?
The ego,
The
who is the
ego.
master,
Okay,
yeah,
got
the
it.
ego, who is the master of the mind. The ego wants to exist. The ego wants you to get so stressed out that you get on drugs and you go homeless in the street. And then when you die, it just goes poof and disappear because it wasn't real in the first place. We must ask ourselves, are thoughts
Hmm.
real or are they imagination?
Okay. And how do you answer that question?
Well, if real is defined as something fixed and permanent and infinite and unchanging, it's a truth. Under that definition, what is real? The body disappears one day. Everything in existence disappears. We existed before all those concepts. The only thing that's real is who we are that come into this existence through the body mind. That's always there. And the way to access our true self is to do the self inquiry and to learn the power of the breath. One of our superpowers is focus. When you focus on the breath, it's the only thing the mind would let you do for a little while before it interrupts, makes you forget what you're trying to do. That little space between you and your thoughts is very powerful because as you keep focusing on the breath, then the ego starts to lose its power and its hold over you. And as you focus on the breath and the mind disappears and you experience silence, silence is not detachment from the world. That self-inquiry is an invitation to experience your true essence. In that silence, you start to access and become one with everything that is. Some people that still have the gift can look at trees and you see the energies that blend together. We are also part of that energy. It is all consciousness that's expressing itself as many forms. Consciousness expresses itself as this body, as the mind,
Hmm.
as fear, as anxiety, as sexuality. It's all consciousness, it's all the same thing. We just haven't been taught that here in the West. We've been programmed to live life like a race to the grave. But in many other cultures, people are taught to focus on the breath, and people are
Right.
taught that to do yoga, and people are taught that this body is piece of the earth. It's just like a plant. It needs to be fed a certain way to maintain a certain pH. And then we start to understand that the mind, if you have a bunch of stories and traumas that are stored there. And we haven't learned that the intellect is of no great service to us unless it flows through your heart. The heart is
Mm.
the central organizer and processor. And when it flows through the heart, heart concepts come up: compassion, empathy, forgiveness. The heart, we're so disconnected from the heart that what's doing the processing for you? You need
So,
look no further than where you're having trouble.
okay, I don't,
Go
with
too
those
far.
last words to where you have, no, no, no. I want you to keep going now. I don't want to interrupt. You know, so people are stressed, people are anxious,
Stress.
people are
Yes.
depressed.
Yes.
Um, how do people with the knowledge of, first of all, how do people make that connection from the mind to the heart? And you might have already answered that. If the answer is your breath, but
Yes.
I'd like you to share a little bit more because I've coined a phrase recently that says we've gotten so smart that we've forgotten our heart. And you know, I feel like you and are connecting at that level.
Yes.
And so given that where most of our lives and our ego is stuck in our brains, which
Right.
absolutely. You know,
Yes.
how do we make that connection? How do we get to that language of the heart of compassion and forgiveness and grace and love?
Yes.
How does that happen?
Well, and as we learn, and you mentioned brain just now, we have dissected the brain. We know everything the brain does. In the upper left temporal lobes, thoughts are changed into words, but we haven't located where thoughts come from. Where is the mind? There is no location for it. It's just a virtual reality world in cyberspace.
Hmm.
It's a simulation of concepts, of stories. Okay. But the mind, the body is one big field of intelligence. Every cell is like their own little mini microcomputer relaying messages back and forth. The brain is the keeps the body well. It maintains homeostasis, but is highly influenced by the mind. The mind dictates whether the brain functions properly or not. The mind will take healthy food and turn it into poison. So we must understand what the mind is. It's an instrument that we use like a calculator. You get up, you plan your day with it, you figure things out, you solve a problem. But when you put it down and it's going blah 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 all the time, you have to know it's not you going blah 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 all the time, right? This self-inquiry, you keep asking, who am I? Ask yourself a question like, does the real me even talk? No. As you focus on the breath and the mind disappears, we experience silence. That silence is pure awareness. It's pure presence. It's who we are. We have a fear of that. We're used to this bombardment with constant activity from the mind, with social media, with life. We have to understand what it means to be silent. And we get there by using our superpower of focus. I taught tennis for a long time. I'm a USPTA tennis pro. And to use tennis as an analogy, the ball is coming at me. That's life coming at me. I
Hmm.
don't know what it's going to do. So there can be no preconceived ideas of what I'm going to do because I don't know what it's going to do.
Right. You don't know what
Only
the ball's
know,
going to do. Yeah.
right, I don't know what the ball's going to do. I only know what's happening as it's happening and can only think and talk about it after it happened. During, I have to allow instinct and intuition, which is greater than the intellect, to function for me. How do I do that? After you've used the mind and you learn what to do, how to hold the racket, what the racket path is, you learn your foot movements, then you use your superpower, your focus, and you focus on the breath. You inhale as you take the racket back, exhale. As I focus on the breath, sometimes I disappear between the thoughts. The mind leaves me alone for a long period of time. I can't feel my body or my feet. I'm just in the zone. This is a technique for going into the zone and understanding what it means to then carry all of that into life and live in the zone. Tennis can be very stressful. Running a marathon can be very stressful. Most people wouldn't want to do it. But as you lock in your breath with the synchronicity of your footsteps, all of a sudden something wonderful happens as you disappear between the thoughts. You enter the zone. And then when you finish your workout, you uplifted and exhilarated rather than beat up and depressed.
So is the zone a matter of getting out of your mind?
Absolutely.
So that is really interesting. And I have to tell you, Noel, um, people who have listened to my podcast, they I I'm sure some of them are thinking, holy cow, John's letting this guy go on without interrupting him for a long freaking time. Because I'm always interjecting thoughts and questions and stuff like that. Um, but what you're saying is really, really fascinating to me. Because we got to get out of our own mind, right?
Yes,
It's our mind that's killing us. And, you know,
absolutely.
it's one of those things where I tell people all the time, you got to protect what goes into your head.
Yes,
Garbage in, garbage out. And
yes,
and you're taking it to a totally different level from the standpoint that says, and people can understand this. People can understand when you say getting into the zone. You think of Tom Brady,
yes,
you think of professional
yes,
athletes, but we've all been
absolutely.
there. We've all been in the
Yes.
zone,
Hmm.
right? And we've all
Yes.
been in that zone, and it's been like, what is it? What happened? Is it once I work out my body and I get to a certain point, I cross a chasm, and all of a sudden I'm in the zone. You're defining it
Yes.
as get out of your own freaking head.
Yes. And understanding what a belief is. A belief is something you don't know. Okay.
Yep.
I ask yourself, what do you know? What do I know? I know for sure I am. I exist. I don't have a belief in my parents. I know my parents. And then you learn other types of knowing in the world of duality, the outside world, which we'll get to in a moment. I know that if I cross the street and a car hit me, this body will, I could be gone,
Yep.
right? It's because to understand the body and the mind and how it operates, we know we've all heard of fight or flight.
Yep.
There's fight, flight, or freeze. If we don't become aware and understand the processes that go on, your life might depend on it. You might be crossing the street. A car's coming to hit me. I leave skid marks. If you freeze, you're dead
Right.
and you're gone. So we didn't have the training. We didn't grow up in an ashram staring at a flower, eating a special diet, doing yoga every day, experiencing people that can count 5 bricks down, hit the top one, and only the fifth one splatter. There are things that we can't really explain because it's beyond our physical understanding.
Right.
When Jesus gathered the disciples and he said, I would lead you to the kingdom of heaven, he got them together. He didn't talk about gates in the sky. He said, the kingdom of heaven lies within.
Right.
So I started to ponder, where is within? Well, when I look at everything in existence, it's just energy vibrating at different frequencies to make different densities of matter.
Okay.
Iron's real hard, more subtle wood, more subtle blood, all the way down to thoughts, very subtle. Then I say, can I perceive thoughts? Yeah, I can perceive my thoughts. So there's something even more subtle perceiving that. Get stuck, you can't go anymore. That's the kingdom of heaven within. The awareness that observes the thoughts. The mind starts the outside world, comes in twos, night and day, black and white, is the word of duality, although it's non-physical. Then the body more physical than everything else in existence. As you do the self-inquiry and you keep asking, who am I? And you get to the truth of who you are through the breath, the observer of the thoughts, you have done a lot more than most people would do. Because
Okay.
most people's world starts at the mind.
Yeah. And well, everybody starts at the mind, don't they?
Yeah, because we all think when you say this, it sounds true. Say, I am my thoughts. They come, I have control over them, and they are me. But you can say the opposite. That because that sounds kind of true. When you say, I am not my thoughts, they come despite me, and I have no bloody control over them. That's even more right.
Interesting. So how do you get to that state? How do you get to the
Open.
state of, you said your breath. So when you think about breath, when I think about breath, I think about meditation, right?
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I know that you can get to the zone without meditation. And so, but it is breath. So
Yes.
how do people, what is a layman's way of breaking through what you're talking about, breaking through the mind and getting to that next level?
I like to share with people that in the beginning that I want you to know that what you're looking for and seeking is where you're looking from. You already are that. All we're doing through the self inquiry is stripping away all the layers of the onion of conditioning to melt away the illusion of who you think you are so that you can realize that the self inquiry is to realize the true self called self realization. You're always there, always have been. You've just bought into what you've been told and your conditioning and become your experiences and then forgotten who you really are. So this process is just to remind you, you already are that. You are always have been. You are peaceful. You are happy. You're always in the zone. We're just learning the techniques to recapture the truth that sets us free of the illusion, which
So
is
we've
that,
always been, Mhm.
which is that you're not a concept or you're not anything the mind can say, and you're not this body. Those are the three.
So we're already there.
Mm-hmm.
There's just been all this noise that's been introduced into our lives that we need to strip away to get back
Yes.
to the core of who we are.
Yes.
So
It's the only thing that's always there. You couldn't hold on to a thought. Another thought will come. The body disappears one day. The trees and everything else disappear. There's only one thing that's always there, which is who we are. You can always access yourself because it's
how does
always there.
let's talk about healing because you
Okay.
mentioned healing. Right now I've got a cold. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um, at night, for whatever reason, and this may be the case for everybody, I just cough. I cough out a lung. It's just crazy right now.
Right.
But we don't have to use that as an example. But how does that? How do you, if you get good at it, at the
Mm-hmm.
stripping away, if you will, and getting back to who you are, how does that help with healing? Or
Well, the
how does a
first thing,
mind? Yeah.
as we do the self inquiry and realize truth, the most powerful thing you said is I.
Okay.
You said investigate that. Question, who is I? Do I really have a cold? Do I ever get sick? Or is it the body that has a cold? Is it the body that gets sick? Is it the body that dies? It's not me. See, we don't know who we are. That realization alone gets rid of the power of everything stored in your mind that says, block up heart, that says, there's so much fear restricting my psoas muscle that it rotates my pelvis, pulling my shoulders down, so I have scoliosis and I get headaches and back pain. It gets rid of the anxiety that goes in your, that affects your spleen and your pancreas, the frustration and anger that affects your liver gallbladder, the grieving that affects your lungs and colon. When you ask what's doing the processing in life for you, look to where your pain and dysfunction, disease, your cancer, your tumor, where is it? That's what's doing the processing, not the heart.
Can you repeat that when you talked about cancer and the process and not being the heart? What say that
Well,
again?
you see, they like to say that I have a cold, I have cancer, I have a tumor, but
Yep.
it's not really I, because I, spirit or soul, lies unaffected by all of life's experiences. I was perfect before I came in the body. I am perfect while all this stuff's going on. And then when I leave the body, I look back at it, it's a mess, decrepit, diseased, and broken down because of the
Yep.
delusion I've been under all my life in the body.
So I am not sick
No,
in the case in my case right now. I am not sick
no,
because
it's
sick
the
doesn't
body.
happen to me. My
No, that
body
is
is
correct.
sick.
Exactly.
Can I call it my body or can I call it the body?
Yeah, you can say the body, you can say my body,
But
just
there's
like
that
you say my,
separation. It's not me.
no,
It's
like
my body that's sick.
actually like saying my house, my car. When
Okay.
you, the body, thinking it's you, looking in the mirror, right? And the mind's interpreting, and you think that's you interpreting, and it says it's got so many bad traumas and stories in the mind that you say, I don't like me, so I commit suicide. You're still missing you. That's like saying my house killed my car. You haven't touched
So
you yet.
so how does okay, so if my body is sick, if I've got cancer,
Hmm.
how do I use what you're saying in terms of separating myself from my body?
Hmm.
And how do I make that cancer go away?
Well, to know that these things, a cold, cancer, tumors, they don't run around and jump inside your body. Is that the internal chemistry of the body has been compromised in some way, and the cells do what nature intended. They mutate and form something that could live in that new environment. I saw a film when I was in school many, many years ago. Had a perfectly healthy red blood cell when the pH was proper. When the environment became too acidic, it mutated, became a bacterial rot form. And when the pH shifted back to normal, it changed back into a healthy red blood cell. Years ago, when I worked at the Optimum Health Research Center in Naples, Florida, my friend Charles Marble, wonderful holistic healer, and he would look at your blood, see how toxic you are and acidic. You can see your T cells moving real slow and sluggish, and you see
Hmm.
all the debris in the body. And then he would put you on a cleanse to clean out your system. My part was removing the emotional component. So I would go through this type of process, educating the person to become aware of The cells in the body that have experienced that event from so long ago are not there anymore because the body renews itself. Every 3 weeks, you have new skin. 4 months, you have new bone. The event is long dead and gone. All that's left is a story
It's
that
stuck in
stores,
there.
yeah, that stores in your mind that then projects out into your body. And if it says excessive resentment, unresolved, long-standing resentment is the metaphysical basis for cancers. So as that person become aware that I am not a concept, the story is just a bunch of concepts. It melts away. And as that person know that, hey, there's this thing called the heart, the central organizer and processor of all of life's experiences. At that point, if I check the five senses through a system of healing I learned called body talk, I can ask, and I'll find out that the five senses have been disconnected from the heart. So then you can't process what's in the body. You can't remove those emotions if your senses are disconnected from your heart.
How did they get disconnected? Or were they ever
Yes,
connected?
they were. As a baby, this is how we process this environment is through the five senses: taste, smell, sight, hearing, and touch. If you have a traumatic experience as a child, you may not, I can give you an example. I worked on a person that was sexually abused very early in life, 3 years of age. And what that child saw, smelled, tasted, and heard at that time, you never want to do it again. You never want to experience it again. So you shut down those five senses. You shut down those senses from the heart. You disconnect it.
So
So
trauma,
then, so the
trauma
trauma
disconnects.
state. Yes, well, your senses disconnect. So the brain is not able because through the breath, the brain scans the frequencies of the body mind, find out that there's a problem and fixes it. If the senses are connected and you have some stored fear in there, the brain can access it and neutralize it. Okay.
If
So
it's connected.
because it's connected.
Right.
If if the senses are not disconnected, the brain can't do its job. You see, when you breathe in, the brain scans from lowest to highest frequencies. And when you breathe out, it scans from highest to lowest frequencies. Low frequencies are like blood and bone. High frequencies are thoughts and emotions in the chakra system. That's why the yogis say perfect breath is perfect health. It's through the breath that the brain scans the frequencies of the body mind and maintain homeostasis.
So most of us are probably have disconnected hearts.
Most of us are not connected to our hearts. And then when Einstein implied that reality is that which underlies appearances, means we must look a little deeper. You look under the microscope, you see this energy, atoms and molecules and subatomic particles. But under the microscope, you put the microscope on everything in existence, you see the same energy. So this energy is also pure intelligence. It makes a human, a goat, a donkey, and a tree. It creates life. So I perceive it as God. It is us. We are that energy. It is consciousness. It is love. And us in action is loving. But then we have the mind that disconnects us from the heart. And we don't know who we are. We don't know that we are love. We think it's a thing that we give and receive.
So how do we reconnect?
How do we reconnect? Just sit your butt down and focus on your breath. Get rid of your mind and you're connected.
Say that one more
When,
time.
when you focus on the breath, the world disappears and you appear. When you focus on the mind, you disappear and the world appears.
I really like the part of sit your butt down. Now here's why. Here's why. Everything that you just talked about, and again, I did not interrupt you. Very few interruptions for who I am. I'm always asking questions. I'm always saying, wait, right? All that stuff that you talked about distills itself down to those few words. Sit your butt down.
This is true. And
And I
silence.
love it. I love it because everybody can do it. Everybody
This
can
is
do
true.
it. I mean, yeah, I don't know metaphysics. I don't know microbiology. I don't know any of that stuff, right? When I was going to
Right.
school, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to try to memorize all that stuff. If I need that information, I'll go look it up. And so, but so I'm a very simple man, right? And I look for the common denominators, and
Mhm.
especially for this podcast, right? Because I want people to come away from this conversation with something they can do, something they can try, something that could absolutely change their mind, their lives,
Right.
right? And and those words, sit your butt down. Sit your butt down. It's four words,
This is,
right?
yes.
But focus on your breath, focus on yourself. And I'll tell you something. And I've mentioned this before on this podcast. And you know this, Noel. Sitting your butt down and focusing on your breath is really freaking hard
Yes.
because
And why?
your mind wants to invade, right? Your
Yes,
mind, your
yes,
thoughts, everything. And that's what you're saying, right? And so I'm sitting
yes.
here I'm kind of feeling um, uh, a little bit of redemption here, right? Because someone once told me, John, just take 5 minutes and learn to
Mhm.
meditate, focus on your breath. I couldn't focus on my breath for 5 seconds,
Yes.
right?
The mind will
Because
interrupt.
it's just constantly interrupting.
We are addicted to it. We are addicted to chaos.
That we are. There's no doubt about it. And especially in the world that we live in today, you
This is
know,
true.
and so this conversation is really consequential with what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to provide to the world because my daughter, she's the one that got me to do this podcast to begin with, right? And
Mhm.
she told me this 13 years ago. She says, John, or Dad, you got to do a podcast. I said, I don't know how to spell podcasts. Just let that go. It's not going to happen. So about a year and a half ago, she came to me and she says, Dad, when are you going to do your podcast? I said, you're bringing that thing up again? And so she told me, she says, you have done so much for ourselves and our friends. The world needs to hear what you have to say. And it all has to do with love. It all has to do with heart. It all has to do with living a better life. And she says, you know what? If forget the hate, forget what people might say about you and your podcast. If you could help one person, just one person, would you consider that a success? I said, absolutely. She says, then do your podcast and give it to the universe.
She's right.
And
What a
and
evolved soul that is.
yeah, and it's just been wonderful. And so, but what I have learned, Noel, is that the more often I find myself in a quiet space and let myself focus, the better I'm getting at it. And the longer I'm able to focus. And it's
Absolutely.
and it's is what you said, it's focusing on your breath. It's not focusing on emptiness, because nobody can focus on emptiness. That's a misnomer. Clear
Yeah.
your mind. You can have a nice day. Are you kidding me? Clear my mind? But focusing on your breath and making and getting reconnected is something that's really, really hard. But like I said, is something that is so simple,
It's
anybody can
very
do it.
simple. Yeah. And the reason why it's so difficult because we're so addicted to the bombardment and constant chaos in the mind that silence brings up fear, fear of all the things buried deep inside the consciousness. The silence is going to bring all that up. That's why it's so hard to sit your butt down and experience the silence. But silence is not a withdrawal. Silence, when you focus on the breath and you do the self inquiry and you ask, who am I? It's an invitation. It's an invitation into that journey, into peeling layers of the onion and getting rid of all that stuff that makes you fearful of that silence. And then that silence starts to, it transcends everything. Pretty soon you start, like right now, I'm experiencing these words coming out. If I try to think them, I won't do so good. I experience thoughts happening. I experience myself playing tennis and doing the doings. None of it have anything to do with me.
Hmm. Based on who you really are, right?
Yeah, that silence is our salvation. It's freedom. It's being free of the imprisonment of our mind. And then once you know it, you know you exist. A belief is something you don't know. Be careful of beliefs. Go with imperial knowing. When I was 12, I came to America. Of course, I had to get cool, in Los Angeles. My next door neighbor told me, hey, that little part you have on the side, the short haircut with the curl in front and the colors you're wearing and that the way you're talking, you're going to get us killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I grew my big afro, start saying man every 2 words, got a little cool, you know. And
Hey,
then
you
after
got
a
to do
few
what you got to
years,
do.
yeah, after a few years, I blew up my anterior cruciate ligament. I tore my hamstring. And I started studying holistic healing. And through that, I had the surgery on my knee. The surgery was successful, but the knee wasn't healing. It took years to heal the knee because there was a blueprint in the mind based on my childhood traumas. When I came to America, the fear of that change weakened the kidney meridian that weakened the knee. The holding on to the past, which is the hamstring and the colon meridian, eventually tore the hamstring. I had to learn that process of doing the self inquiry, understanding who I am. I'm not a concept or anything the mind can stay. So those stories can melt away. The vision of my mom and grandmother crying in the airport in Trinidad as I came to America helped me. It was the love. As in high school, when my friends decided to go on to cocaine and all that kind of stuff and drugs, it was the love of my grandmother and my mother that stopped me from falling down that rabbit hole. It is the love that keeps us safe. It's the love that guides us. It's who we are. And the breath gets us in touch with that love. It's who we are. It's our true essence. It's our expression.
My goodness. My goodness. Um, this has been, I don't know what this has been, to be honest with you. This has been a conversation like none I've ever had before. And uh, it's you just talked about love, and we're going to end it on this. And I'd love to have you come back and join me sometime because we've got a lot more to talk about. But I've been saying forever, it's all about love. It's
Yes,
all about love. And like I said, we've gotten so smart, we've forgotten our heart.
this is true.
And reconnecting back to our heart, and you've given us the way to do that. And just so folks don't have to rewind this tape, I just aged us. But rewind, it's your breath. It's your
It's
breath and finding yourself in that quiet space and getting your mind out of your way.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, once you focus on the breath and the silence, it's because the mind has allowed it.
Got it. But you got to break through, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
you already,
is it just a matter of just keep working at it, like
yeah,
building that muscle. You work on that muscle, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Is it as simple as that, Noel?
just remember that word surrender. Surrender. Whether you surrender to Jesus, to God, to your higher self, to source,
To the universe,
to the universe, whatever you want to
whatever.
call it,
Yep.
surrender, let go. Experience what silence is. Because in that you're connected to all that exists. You're connected at a deeper level. And just understand how the mind disrupts it. The mind only represents the illusion that we think we are. It's not who we are.
Woo! All right. All right. So, holy cow. All right. Um, Noel, thank you. You have given a
Pleasure,
lot,
John.
given us all a lot to ponder. You've given us all a lot to take action on, which could be arguably the most important thing there is to focus on, and that is you.
Yes.
Well, not you, but me, and not me, but yourself. Um,
And we are
and
one.
and we are one, and we are one. I want to ask you one last question on that topic.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll wrap up. So I believe that we're all related. I
Mm-hmm.
believe, and you talked about beliefs, be careful of beliefs, but it becomes a math problem. And, you know, to make a long story short, we all have two parents. It takes two people to make a baby. Okay. So we have two parents, four grandparents, eight great grandparents, 16 great great grandparents, and so forth and so on, right? So if you figure like four generations per century, okay, and you think back 2,000 years ago, let's just round it off, 2,000 years ago to the days of Jesus Christ. It was 2,100, but I'm just going to say 2,000. So if you say 2,000, that's 80 generations,
Mm-hmm.
okay? To 20 times four generations per century. That's 80 generations. You
Mm-hmm.
know, at your 10th generation, you've got 1,000 people. At your 20th generation, you got 1,000,000 people. At the 30th generation, you got 1 billion people. And at the 40th generation, you got 1 trillion people. So when you get up to 80 generations, which is 80 squared, you end up with some number. I think it's a septillion, right? There has never been that many people on planet Earth. There's never been 1 trillion people on planet Earth. So how do you explain that, right? The way you explain it is intermingling. And when I told my wife that, she goes, "Ooh, gross," right? But the fact of the matter is, that's the only thing that explains it. So, by that definition, mathematically, I believe, or as I think of, and I'm not a mathematician, okay? But I gotta believe there comes a point in statistics that says it is statistically impossible that we're not related, right? And
Yes.
there is a universal energy, and we all are connected. And so you said we're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what we see is not the truth.
Right?
What we pick up with the five senses is not the truth.
Right.
We have to understand there is physical, but at a deeper level, there's energy. And the energy that we can't see is where we're connected. We see the bodies as being different,
Right.
but the source is all connected, is all one. We cannot be deceived by what we see. We see
Right.
differences where there aren't any. We just have to look deeper.
All right, Noel. All right. This has been amazing. This has been amazing. I am so grateful that you come into my life and thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is your book available on Amazon?
Yep, it's out on Amazon, number one bestseller. They gave me a really nice review, and
Wonderful.
a lot of this stuff is what's in it.
So you've given us a lot, but for those of you who'd like to learn more, Noel Inniss, and the name of his book is Inner Odyssey. Okay?
Yes,
Inner Odyssey. Go check it out. I'm going to be focused on my breath. I will
yes.
tell you that. I will tell you that. That is the gift that you've given me, and hopefully others out there will accept it too. So with
Yeah.
that, is there any last comments?
Oh, love is all there is. It's who we are. And
It's all about
blessings to
love.
you, John, and everyone else.
And you too. And Noel, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for doing what you're doing and sharing. And folks, get out there and share this. Share this with folks who you know need to hear Noel's message. And with that, I love you. God bless you all. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye.